Hello, this is Ed Markey speaking. Welcome to the Ed Markey podcast. Okay, so...
Let me know. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm joined here today by Sara Nelson. Sara is the president of the Flight Attendants-CWA, AFL-CIO, and she's been a flight attendant for 25 years. And honestly, if you Google progressive leader, her picture comes up. That's just who she is. And she's a fighter. And actually, very few people have the gift which she has to distill the message which Democrats need, which people need in order to fight the lunacy in America today. So I'm just so glad to be with you, Sara. Sara was with us at the beginning of the Green New Deal. It's just 5 years ago, and it animates especially young people, 18 to 34-year-olds, but I think to a certain extent, it animates the Democratic Party, this whole notion of the Green New Deal. So can you talk about the Green New Deal, climate in general, and the kind of the legacy we want to leave for workers and for their families in the future?
I mean, here's the reality. Climate is already changing our economy. So in the airline industry, a lot of people would say, oh, what are you trying to do? Put the airline industry out of business? Well, that's absurd. I mean, we're going to need airplanes in order to do business with each other, to meet with each other, all of these things. But we can do it in a way that is carbon neutral. We can change the airline industry with innovation in order to do that, if we lean in to do that. And already the airline industry, for workers in the airline industry, our jobs are being impacted right now with climate change. So every time there's a natural disaster, there is airport infrastructure that is destroyed, or it's too hot to land on tarmacs, or there is, a massive flood, or our members' homes are destroyed and they have to stay home and they can't come to work, or we're working the relief flights to these places.
Can I just interject this? You're saying at airports across the country right now, the infrastructure, the runways, the ability for airports to function are being impacted by climate change.
Yes. So what we say is that the solutions to climate change are not the problem. Climate change itself is the problem. Mm-hmm. And because we've identified this problem, and the next generation, as you noted so clearly, understands this. This is an existential threat. We can talk about what kind of world we want to leave to our children and grandchildren, but for, people who are just entering the workforce, they're looking at, being able to live in this world or not, as they're seeing billionaires build rockets to go off into space and leave the rest of us on a burning Earth. So, the Green New Deal is about flipping that around and making sure that innovation that only billionaires, frankly, are able to access right now is reinvested in all of us, so that we can have a world that we can live on right here. We can have clean water to drink. We can go, when we go on vacations, we can go swim in that water. We can run in the grass, and we can also live a good life. This is reimagining our economy, because our economy is getting wrecked by the attention that has not been paid to climate change. And we can rebuild it in a way that's for everyone.
So when you talk about we can do this, we can make a transition, we can innovate our way to a solution and create union jobs while we're doing it.
That's right.
So wind, solar, all-electric vehicles, battery storage technologies.
Sustainable aviation fuels.
So talk about sustainable aviation fuels. What are the breakthroughs that you would hope could happen?
Well, I mean, they're already using sustainable aviation fuels, and we just need to be able to produce more of it, and we need to make more aircraft that can actually use it. During the COVID relief bill, one of the things that we tried to get into the bill was cash for clunkers on airplanes, okay? So we tried to say that, at a time when the airline industry was going to be struggling with revenue, let's use this time to encourage building airplanes in America that can use sustainable aviation fuels that can fly that way, and then let's retire the gas guzzling airplanes that could be put on the ground. And this was a great plan, especially when the airline industry was going to need some investment, right? I mean, this worked all the way around, and it was going to create good jobs for people who are in manufacturing and engineering, and it was going to encourage innovation. And there were people who just wanted, the GOP crossed it out because it had to do with climate change. Pure and simple. This was a really good idea. And if we have more people talking about this and demanding that we invest in R&D to be able to advance our technology in all of these industries, we're all going to do a lot better. The auto workers, right? They're leaning into that EV transition, but of course there has to be the infrastructure to make it work. So we've got to have both the contracts with the companies to make sure that stays good jobs here in America, that we're innovating here in America, and we also have to have the government investing in the infrastructure that will support it. Nobody's going to wait for 7 hours to charge their car when they go on a family vacation. So we've got to invest in that infrastructure to make all of this work and support those good jobs right here.
So you, Sean Fain from the United Auto Workers, you're energizing this organizing that needs to happen in our country. And we're seeing that all across the country increasingly. So can you talk about that? Talk about the role that organizing has to play if we're going to have a Green New Deal. And when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I were introducing the Green New Deal, yes, we said there's a climate crisis. Yes, we said that there are technologies out there that we can deploy or develop and deploy. But third, we had to do it in a context where we didn't make the mistakes of the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that we did it with equity, that we did it intersectionally, that we did it with black and brown people who were centered, that we did it with environmental justice communities that were centered, and that we're going to have to organize in order to accomplish that goal. And we were able to pass the IRA, which, by the way, $369 billion, but now Wall Street is saying, you know what, it might be $1.2 trillion because that's the appetite for these new technologies. So can you talk about organizing? Can you talk about the importance of organizing to get all of these progressive ideals put in place?
The very most important thing that we have to think about and that organizing does is help workers see that we can actually drive the agenda. So the economy has had wages flat, productivity going through the roof. And that means that people are working overtime or they're working 2 and 3 jobs to get by. You've got everybody in the house working now instead of one wage earner who's taking care of everyone. Everyone is working more. But if we put this innovation back in the pockets of all of us and not just in Wall Street, then we all get to live a better life. When the Green New Deal first came out, and it has a list of aspirations about what we want our world to be. And people were saying, Sara, why did the Association of Flight Attendants endorse the Green New Deal? And we said, well, because we read it. It literally lists every single priority of our members at the bargaining table. Better health care, right? Or health care for all. Housing close to where you can live. Access to public transportation that everybody can access and everybody can have a good job. The certainty that if you go to work, that you should make a living wage and be able to provide for your family.
Do you know the radical strategy that we had in terms of putting all those things in? We used Franklin Delano Roosevelt's 1944 State of the Union verbatim.
Yeah,
Everyone's
Economic Bill of Rights.
Everyone is entitled to full health care. Everyone is entitled to an education, to their God-given ability. Everyone's entitled to a vacation, a paid vacation. So we only took the State of the Union address, and people were talking about, even, I hate to say this, some Democrats, like it's come crazy,
like it's
socialistic,
crazy.
Destruction of the country. But in fact, it's what unions have been fighting for from their creation.
From their creation. And that was around the time that the United Auto Workers were coming to be. And then we often credit the UAW with building up that standard for the working class so that you can have a good life. As unions have declined, we've all done worse. So this organizing is critical. This organizing is critical on two fronts. One, we don't just live in a democracy, we live in a system of capitalism. And capitalism is fine for competition and all of those things, but capitalism unchecked is not a good thing. And that's what we're seeing, this massive inequality. And that has moved into our politics. So you have money controlling our politics now. So what we have to do is organize. As we organize, we get more workers into unions, we get more workers engaging with each other. By the way, the boss chooses who's in the workplace, so it's the last non-self-selecting place in America where you bring people together with very different backgrounds, but they come together with common demands in unions on the boss. And then when we're out on the picket line, we hear each other's stories and we start to understand that we've got more in common than anything that could divide us. So it brings people together, takes on capital, and makes them have to give money to the workers, which gives more power to the people to be able to take charge of our politics and set the agenda. That's what the organizing is really doing, is setting up the people to have the power to set the agenda in our politics. And for too long, people have said, why do I vote? I vote and nothing changes. It doesn't matter which party I put in. But this is how we change our politics, by organizing in our workplaces, taking on the people who have been controlling our politics, getting some of their money, clamping down on that inequality, and giving the people the power to set the agenda.
To set the agenda. And I was just thinking while we were talking that back in the 1940s, my father was the vice president of a union up in Boston, the UE union.
That's a great union.
So he was vice president up there. And it's 1944, and here's the president's State of the Union address, calling for, and he's saying actually, when the war is over, we are going to need a strategy in order to deal with all these returning veterans, but for every family in our country. And Joe McCarthy, Senator Joe McCarthy, he thought the UE was a kind of a communist union. They were trying to undermine the country. But in fact, all they were doing is expressing the aspirations which every family has for itself. Like you're saying, put them in the workplace, they're going to have the exact same response.
That's right.
To what is the need for their family. And that's what unions actually provide. So going forward here, are you optimistic this year that we can organize around these issues and that we can be successful?
I'm extremely optimistic, and here's why. First of all, unions in general have a 71% approval rate. That's the highest that it's been in a century. And during the UAW strike, think about this. For the 40 days that they were on strike, people were not able to get their cars fixed. People were inconvenienced. Typically, what that has led to in the past is people not supporting a strike and blaming the workers for their inconveniences. That didn't happen because people understand that what the UAW was doing was setting demands that the rest of the country can relate to. We've all lost control of our time. We all are having a hard time paying our bills. We're all struggling with medical debt and student loan debt. We all are living under this incredible weight. And what that strike did was set demands, including the 32-hour work week, which sure we didn't get, but if you get all of your demands, you didn't put enough on the table. And we've started that conversation again about the 32-hour work week, which frankly is back from the Economic Bill of Rights and FDR too. So it's time to restart these things. And what we saw during that strike was 75% of Americans supported it because they understood that the demands of the auto workers were the same demands that they need for their own families.
And I think a lot of it was that they kept repeating over and over again. Here's how much the CEOs got as a raise over the last 10 years. Here's the profits that the company made. And then here's what the workers got. That doesn't seem fair. That seems like it's wrong. And repeated over and over again, it winds up, did you say it's 71%?
71%, but 75% of Americans supported that strike. And that is extraordinary. You know, we're used to running strikes where you just try to have people not spit on you. But that's not where we are. People are cheering it on. They're cheering on the organizing. They're cheering on people taking on capital and saying, enough is enough. You've gone too far. You've taken too much. And we've got to have our own for our families and for the people.
You know, you're wearing a Starbucks pin, and we had Howard Schultz come into our committee about 6 months ago, and he was sitting there telling his story about why he's motivated to do well by every one of his workers. And he said that his father, who was a veteran, he came out, and then ultimately he was just summarily let go in the company. Mm-hmm. And that as a CEO, I vowed to have the kind of a workplace where people were welcome. And I just said to him, I said, I don't think you understand, Mrs. Schultz. These workers today are like your father. They want rights that protect them against being laid off, against having punishments that aren't justified. And I don't think you understand, Mrs. Schultz. They are your father. Your father would be fighting for the right to protect his family. You growing up in his house. So
that's right.
So this has been an incredible couple of years for unions.
Yes.
Huh?
And I'll tell you what, that kind of thinking is about a charity economy, where a few people get to decide what the rest of us get to have, where men get to tell women what's good for us, where white people get to tell people of color what's good for them and where they should stay. That is not the kind of country that we were promised. We were promised that this would be a country where we can all thrive, and we have yet to deliver on that promise. But this generation is going to make it happen, and so we're going to reject that charity principle, because that is the idea that a few strong men are going to tell us how we should live. And if we want to have a free society, that is not actually rugged individualism. That is a path of collective action. That is how we actually experience freedom in this country.
Exactly. And that's how you get to a small number of powerful white men, even right now. They're saying, well, we don't trust you to vote. We're going to have to put some extra standards on you because you in Georgia or Mississippi or Alabama, but especially in areas where black and brown people are going to be voting at disproportionately high numbers, we've got to put in extra safeguards because, you know, you might not understand how white, educated, suburban voters would behave themselves, right? And actually, it's all in the guy. It's a guise to preserve white, powerful men's control over our economy. And the beauty of this era is that it is women and black and brown activists who are up and organizing.
People who have been marginalized are often are most creative, because it's not a straight line to get what you need or want. Mm-hmm. You have to be very creative about trying to get to solutions. And so we need more people who have been sort of on the outside of our economy, on the inside of planning what's next. That's how we're going to get the creative juices flowing to get what we need.
Exactly. You know, this period of time is really, actually, in a way, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to bring together a coalition that looks at Donald Trump, looks at all these people who agree with him, and just to put a going out of business sign on their whole operation. And it's taken a while. It's taken like a whole generation to get to this point. But I think, in a way, the Green New Deal and its organizing principles and its high ideals and aspirations for everyone in our country are creating an incredible moment. And I'm with you. I'm very optimistic about this year.
I am too. And, you know, I'm especially optimistic because unions belong everywhere, Ed. as you know.
I do.
Because you were the first to recognize the Congressional Workers Union in the Senate. I'm so proud of that. I'm proud to stand with you here. I'm proud of the staff who are putting this together and who organized. And we need a voice everywhere. Everyone deserves that freedom and that right to be able to speak up, say when something's wrong, or to be able to contribute to make something better. That's what this is about.
That's what this is about. And, we're battling big entrenched forces, oil, gas, and coal. They've had tax breaks for 100 years. But when we want to give them to wind and solar, battery storage, or sustainable fuel for airlines, they go, that's socialism. That's socialism. And all we're saying is give us some of that socialism for our technologies where you gave it to big oil and big gas. And so we play a little game here. It's called Big Oil or Movie Villain. And then I ask just a question based upon a quote. And then I would ask you to just decide who said this, a big oil executive or a movie villain. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, this is up first.
Okay.
What the hell did we do to deserve this? What the hell did we do to deserve this?
That was an
movie villain, big oil.
Oil executive.
Oil executive? That was Tony Hayward of BP CEO. In the wake of the BP oil spill, this quote came not long after he also said, there's no one who wants this over more than I do. I want my life back.
Oh.
So it's sad, isn't it?
It is sad.
It's just the tragedy of an oil executive who has despoiled the entire Gulf of Mexico saying, I want my life back. How about everyone that lives in the Gulf of Mexico?
Terrible
but
for the guy.
It's just who they are. Okay, one more?
Yeah.
All right. The only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. The only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. Big oil, movie villain.
I'm going to have to go with big oil because I have heard so many corporations say, we don't need any regulations. We don't want any rules. Rules for everybody else, not for us.
You're so right. And you know that they have said it over and over again. But no, that's the Joker in Dark Knight. Although we know big oil executives don't want to abide by any rules, just like you said. Yeah. So it does apply to both of them. What's the differentiation between these two? So this is going to be the tiebreaker.
All right.
One more.
Okay.
When you have an opportunity to talk, I liken it to fishing, right? You have bait, you throw that bait out. When you have an opportunity to talk, I liken it to fishing, right? You have bait, you throw that bait out. What do you think? Big oil? Movie villain?
Well, I think since they, destroyed the lives of the fishes, maybe it's a movie villain instead of the big oil. Did I get it wrong?
You know what? You
wrong?
said destroying the fish, right?
Yeah.
So I thought you were heading right down that track. That was an Exxon lobbyist talking about trying to influence members of Congress.
Amazing.
It was released as part of the Greenpeace Exxon tapes where they actually heard them talking about, here's how you influence members of Congress. You just throw the bait out there.
It's amazing they would use that metaphor after destroying the fishes. Exxon, yes.
So you've got, you're saying after Tony Hayward is actually, with his crocodile tears, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Moaning about the impact on his own life.
Yeah.
And now the fish, are absolutely despoiled. But I don't know. On these quizzes that we do, they're so close, okay? the indistinguishable oil executives and movie villains. But so we thank you for everything you do. You're a pioneering leader, a change agent for the ages, everything that you've been doing. And you and I, we've been working together for 20 years now, which is absolutely unbelievable.
It is.
In terms of all of the safety measures that have had to be built into planes after 9/11.
Yeah.
And now you don't lead just on those issues, although you do lead on those issues. You lead on just this broader agenda for our country, and I thank you for that.
You know what? Those issues brought me to the fact that these are the same issues that every industry faces. And I think that that is why I am especially optimistic, because people across the country are feeling solidarity because of the harm that they have felt that is the same across the board. You can call it different things, but everyone is identifying with who's on the wrong side, who's on the right side, and the working class is coalescing to clean up what they've messed up and wreck their economy of trickle down and build up our new one with the Green New Deal.
Wow, what a leader. She's a historic leader. Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
Thanks, Ed.
And we'll see you all on our next podcast coming up soon.